Today's episode is brought to you by the University of Hawaii, College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources, and the Seeds of Wellbeing, or SOW project. This podcast is supported by the Farm and Ranch Stress Assistance Network grant from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, National Institute of Food and Agriculture, and the Hawaii Department of Agriculture.
Aloha, welcome to the SOW podcast, aimed to provide educational support, information, guidance, and outreach to farmers, ranchers, and our allied agriculture producers in Hawaii. We are your hosts, Mele Oshiro and
Shannon Sam.
And today we're going to be talking about different ag stressors in Hawaii and some resources that are available out here to help our farmers or ranchers and other ag producers.
That's great, Mele. So I guess we're just going to basically have a discussion today and kind of talk about what we see as some potential ag stressors in Hawaii. And so I'm going to ask the question now, Mele. As someone who's had a lot of experience in the industry from a lot of different viewpoints as a researcher, an extension agent, as a vet tech, what do you see as some potential stressors in the egg industry in Hawaii?
Yeah, over the years, it's very strange. And I always think that we're going to find new things that kind of come, and there are new things that kind of come. But in relation to like the most important things that are related, we did a few surveys that have gone on over the past few years. One that we did with our livestock extension group was a needs assessment across the state. And some of the related topics in there that were the most important aspects, or I should say kind of the top three things in relation to anybody's livestock operation. First was commercial sales, of course, right? And I think some of the stressors that are related to that is our limited slaughter capacity on the islands and across the state, So there's some improvement and other options that are coming around the bend, hopefully, for improving the capacity on the islands, and even marketing. People want to be able to have local markets they can put their animals through, but even our beef cattle producers, it's not economically feasible for them to be able to finish animals in the state. So a lot of it is all shipped out. And so then you add that as another stressor, right? The cost of shipping.
And especially in the last 2 years with everything, I was like, shipping costs have just.
With everything going on in the world situation, it's likely not to get any cheaper, so I think those are types of things. But there are programs, we'll talk about that later, but there are programs that can kind of help you deal with those types of things, and marketing is a big one, because it's not just access to marketing, but it's creating the right product for market and understanding what your inputs are that's going to be able to make you gain in this local market.
Well, and with marketing, it's also knowing who your audience is. So let's say you and I both produce poultry, right? Let's say we both produce eggs, but we might have completely different target audiences, because Mele may raise pasture-raised organic eggs, whereas I specialize in, let's say, pasture-raised or chickens that are fed a flaxseed diet or a specific flaxseed diet. Those could potentially have some overlapping market. But they might be two completely different target markets, so I think that's a big thing too, is also who are you marketing? And I think that's and your area, right? Because like from island to island, I think our markets do change a little bit. Local markets do change, and the desires, especially if you're trying to sell locally, it's very unique.
So understanding that is very important. And and one of the other thing that was brought up was just the ability for those producers to provide for their family, whether their farm is providing for the family and in the source of the proteins or whatever they're growing, or just financially supporting their family as a second income or whatnot. Those are important things, and it all falls back to being able to have the commercial sales, right? And another big topic that comes up all the time is land, right? Availability of land, management of the land.
I think that's a main one, consistent across most commodities, if not all.
It's a tough one. I mean, our government's policies for land management and is one that I think everybody struggles with. In order to kind of alleviate some of that stresses, we got to really understand who can we go to, and in order to kind of understand the policies that is there, and then what should you be doing as a producer, what can you do as a producer to help kind of stand up for those actions that need to be taken to be able to have that land become more available for agriculture production, right? And other things related to land management is just the grazing management, right? In grazing systems, how do you properly manage your grazing systems to ensure those conservation efforts and ecosystem services that you as a producer provide is done properly, you know, and managing the weeds and the pests and invasive species that are coming on, you know, right now on Hawaii Island, two-line spittlebug is a big one that is causing a wreck to our pastures. You know, I mean, and there's a lot more.
Some people will have both cattle and goats because the cattle, or well, sometimes horses, but usually cattle and sheep are a little more persnickety in terms of what they choose to digest and eat than goats, depending on, again, on like pasture setup, which Melly can talk more about. I know people like to use goats generally as cleanup.
Well, they're browsers, right? So just, it's just a little bit different.
Can eat stuff that's poisonous to other livestock.
And
their rumens are amazing.
Even sheep is the same scenario, right? You can use them to graze. Here, you know, fireweed, the yellow flower is one of the big things, and they have been used as a management system or part of a management system in many different farms and ranches here, you know, even grazing understory and whatnot with the sheep. You know, they're a little bit smaller, so they're a little bit easier to manage, but you know, there's actually Dr. Provenza, who has studied grazing behavior for a long time, calls them FLIRD, flocks and herds, and they use them, you know, and there's a few ranchers that have done this, you know, incorporating them together. You kind of have to build your flock or FLIRD so that they're used to each other and they can graze alongside, but it's also just
it's
not
doable.
And not only for the use of them in grazing management and weed control in your pastures, but also protection for those smaller livestock, because they kind of bond up to those larger livestock. And if you had dogs or anything like that come through, you kind of see these smaller guys go in between the bigger herd, you know, and it sort of gives them some type of protection. At least that's one of the thoughts behind having a FLIRD. So and you know, I
just love it. Like the name FLIRD.
And you know, I don't think those are like definitely not extensive of the issues or aspects that are very important to livestock operations here in Hawaii, but just kind of those top three that kind of come to my mind, and what a lot of folks kind of reach out for help for. So, and I'm sure Shannon, it probably has other, you know, on the other side of things, there's other stressors or challenges producers face in Hawaii that she's probably come across on her end. So I'll let her discuss some of those.
Well, I would agree with you that when I conducted my needs assessment, that marketing was a main one that did come up across all commodities, because I do go across all commodities with my background in economics and statistics and business. Wow, that sounds like a lot, but it's not really. It's all kind of interrelated a little bit. So, but also some other things I think that have been a big issue, and particularly in the last, probably 3 to 6 months, has been inflation. I was like, Melly and I have had some side conversations offline and via Zoom or on the phone, just talking about that, and just even how the prices in the retail grocery store have changed, but what producers are receiving, it hasn't quite caught up with that yet. So there's a lot of that's happening with people, you know. I mean, oftentimes, unless you're a fully self-sufficient farm, which yay if you are, but it's kind of hard to be, really, if you think about it. So you're still having to go to the grocery store and buy stuff. The increase in prices, whether that's food, fuel, you know, whatever. I mean, it's gone up a lot in the last 2 years. And again, some of that's related to shipping costs. Some of that's inflation. Some of that's just the general state of the world with the pandemic and stuff. But we've had increased prices at the store for things, like I said, and fuel, especially the last couple of months. I'm making faces now. It's gone up a good bit. And if you're running heavier equipment, or you need to try and run stuff more often, you know, for your operation, that's costing you a lot of money right now, you know. Fertilizer, people, I mean, because the labor market, especially fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, the labor market is currently having a shortage. And so there's like almost more jobs than people. Well, there's not. There is more jobs than people. Let me be a little more specific. Hawaii, because we are an island, you know, it's made even more difficult to get labor here, or, you know, people that left during the pandemic for other jobs, like, do they want to come back? Are they going to be making as much equivalently? The cost of living has just increased so much in the last 2 years alone. And then, like I said, you throw in the inflation in the last 3 to 6 months. I mean, electricity's gone up. I feel like everything. And then we've had a lot of big changes in the economy. So I don't know if we're going into a new cycle of normal for the livestock industry and the cattle industry in particular, but we might be headed that way, is kind of what some of the other economists are saying that I've talked to. And I'm just going to bring up labor again, because I feel like that's something that everybody has issues with. Yeah. It's a difficult one to deal with. There's just so many, there's a lot of stressors in it. Yeah. And I was on a call the other day with RASP, basically the Western Region Ag Stress Assistance Program. Basically, it's a regional group of extension researchers and other nonprofits that meet every quarter or so and kind of discuss what's going on in the region related to agriculture and stressors and how we can help people. And that's just one that's come up. I mean, all these things are ones that have kind of come up again and again. I feel like
there's a lot of things that change and go on, you know, when you look back 10 years, but I think we still in general are still dealing with the same umbrella of things. You know, here in Hawaii, we just are always going to have to deal with shipping costs, which turns around and just has that influence over the whole overhead of your operation, because you're either dealing with high shipping costs, which is going to influence things like you said, right? Fuel, right? Or our feed, if we're having poultry, you know, some of those other operations that require you to have, or you need to have those types of concentrate feeds, you're going to be impacted by those shipping costs and ultimately, you know, that overhead for your operation. Yeah. Shannon was talking about RASP. There's a lot of resources out there, you know, for you to either learn different management practices that can help reduce costs in other ways. I think first resource that we probably want to say, of course, is, you know, UA, Cooperative Extension Service. For those that are not familiar with it, there's cooperative extension agents across the state on all your different islands. We work with a variety of agriculture enterprises. So from edible crops to home gardens, you know, there's the Master Gardeners program, there's livestock agents on the island, folks that deal with farm and finance and record keeping and all that. That's what Shannon does. You know, I'm the livestock
but
agent.
Also marketing and business planning and just the general economics of the state and stuff. I mean, there's a lot we cover. Yeah. And there's a lot of there's a lot of interdisciplinary work and stuff that goes on at UH. Yeah. I mean, honestly, if you have a question, I would say the best bet is just to reach out to someone at UH, particularly in extension. Oftentimes extension tends to, we get around a lot. I don't know if we're like those kids that are, you know, butterflies in a way, but yeah,
you know, and one of the goals for extension is the outreach, right? That we do with our farmers and the extension work that you do, working with them hands-on if they need help in certain areas, doing those farm calls or ranch visits when you need them.
Yeah. Or if you have questions about things, because of the last couple of years, I've had a few people that have called in relation to certain transition planning things on their farm and ranch, because, you know, the unexpected happens sometimes. And so I was like, there's resources out there and I can definitely hook you up with those, but there's, whether it's us or someone else that we know, there's a lot of them available in Hawaii. We are really lucky.
Yes. I think the easiest way to go about it is whatever your industry is that you are working in, whether it's edible crops or livestock, or find those agents that are out there and they can direct you. If you're not sure who can help you, call one of the extension office nearest you and ask that.
They are generally really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, because there's all kinds of different groups. If we can't answer it, maybe someone at HCC can, or I should say Hawaii Cattlemen's Council. I'm going to try and not do I'm going to try, y'all, and not do too many acronyms, but like there's like Big Island Farm Bureau. And like I said, there's RASP that Melee and I are involved in some of that stuff they do. Extension is a great clearinghouse for that. I mean, there's mediators and stuff that we can hook you up with or hook people up with if they need that. Because let's be honest, sometimes we don't get along as family members. And sometimes that's the biggest issue.
And sometimes when you have a big group, or family that you need to go through that whole discussion of what to do, it's helpful to have the outside person in there kind of doing the logistics of what you need to get through. Because I know when our family gets together and we're trying to plan something, it's not an argument, it just becomes a great big discussion, and we all just sit there.
I like that you call it a discussion.
Yeah. And we don't, it's not even an argument. We just sit there and we talk story about everything else except what we actually came there for, and which is great, because you get to visit, but then you don't actually accomplish what you set out to do for the day. So anyways, CTAHR cooperative extension agents are a great resource for you. Reach out to the offices and they can direct you to the agent that can best help you. The other one is our SOU project, the Seeds of Wellbeing project.
We have a clearinghouse as well that they're actually, I don't know if the website is set up, but they actually are in the process of creating the map for that. Sorry for cutting you off, Millie. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was going to say. The Seeds of Wellbeing is going to have a website and they'll have resources on there. They're creating this map that Shannon just said that you can look across the state to find the different resources. That will be something that's going to be available. I'll let Shannon talk more about RASP because it's the Western Regional Agricultural Stress Assistant Program, and they have a great clearinghouse of resources as well. But I'll let Shannon explain a little bit more about what they are.
Yeah. So RASP, like Malay said, I'm just going to call this one RASP. I know I said I'd try not to acronym you, but it's really long and I will get tongue tied. But the Western Regional Ag Stress Assistance Program, I have to say it real slow. Again, it's a tongue twister for me. They have a clearinghouse of different programs, bureaus, centers that they've gathered for each of the 13 states, I believe, and the 4 territories. So if someone who is listening to this, because this does go out worldwide, is in like Guam or Micronesia and some of those places, you should check here because there might be resources available. I know for sure Guam because one of the colleagues, I work with him and he's out of University of Guam. So they've collected as many resources as possible for the different states and islands and territories, which is just great. And there is some overlap with SOU because the projects are tangentially related under USDA NIFA, since USDA NIFA in the newest farm bill have really taken a good look at kind of what producers need in terms of, I don't want to say stress relief, but looking at like ag stressors related to producers and their needs, and like trying to make sure that there are groups, organizations, partnerships that are established to help minimize those. Anyways, they're just to name a few. They have things like Big Island Farm Bureau. They have CTAHR Cooperative Extension Service. But they have things like the Environmental Mediation Center. So like I said, mediation sometimes is really helpful, especially when you're doing a state and transition planning. Sorry. Like I have my mediation certifications for like the Midwest and the Plains from when I was there. And I took my recertifications last year because why not? We were all stuck indoors anyways. And so I was like, I can do that. But I can tell you personally from my own experience dealing with my family, doing a state and transition planning for our farm and ranch, that I am not the one to mediate that situation because we all like have thoughts and feelings about that. So like having an outside mediator come in and help is really helpful, even though in general, I don't know if I'm the peacemaker in the family or not, or whatever. They might say that, but they probably wouldn't. But it's one of those things like I do have a stake in the game in a way, you know what I mean? So I know that I'm not the right person because I probably would get quite heated at certain points.
Right. So
having an outside mediator come in and set those ground rules for everybody, honestly, it's just so helpful. And there are programs through USDA, it's free. So, and I think maybe Hawaii Department of Ag as well. I don't think it's listed on here. Do you know, Millie?
Yeah, I think they are because they are one of the
are they one of the
collaborators for
Okay.
RASP. Yeah. So
Okay.
I believe they are listed on there.
And then there's GMO Free Maui. There's, again, Hawaii Farm Bureau. I mean, there's tons. Hawaii Ag Mediation Program. There's lots and lots of programs on here. Hawaii Department of Agriculture, Hawaii Organic Farmers Association, Hawaii Seed, Hawaii State Farm Service Agency. So there's lots and lots of different groups and clearinghouse. This actually has multiple pages, this website, which we'll link below. And we will try and link, if our site is up and running, we will link that as well. But yeah, I was like, there's just so many resources out there. And like I said, if you're in doubt because there are so many and you're just not sure who to go to, reach out to like your local agent or your local office and just ask.
Or even reach out to Shannon and I, and we can kind of help you filter through all that and, or, you know, find you the resource or the person that can help you best. And, you know, some of the other resources that we have here is just, you know, in some of the programs is FSA, you know, the Farm Service Agency.
Yes. They have been so amazing. And we've had them on our livestock Pauhana, which we have,
which is another
every
resource
quarter now. That is another resource. Yeah.
Farm Service Agency, they have a lot of programs. One in particular I'll mention is the LFP, which is the livestock forage program that they do, which helps to reimburse and help with feed costs and whatnot during when there's a drought and all that kinds of stuff. So take advantage of those programs and, you know, reach out to your local FSA person and get in touch with them. And if you don't know who that is, contact us. We're happy to put
send
you
us
in
an
touch
email.
with
We
them.
can find them.
Yeah. And then the other one is our livestock extension group. We put on a quarterly Pauhana, which is online. And that's another opportunity. We have a lot of legislators
we've been very lucky
folks that come to hear about the issues that's going on. When we start to talk about land management and all this kinds of places, this is I think a way for you to kind of express what's going on in your feelings. And the livestock extension group, although livestock agent and Hawaii Cattlemen's that is the host for this, any aspect of livestock to come here, you know, whether, you know, you're even just poultry and is not limited, and, you know, reach out.
Yeah. And there's different, you know, the livestock extension group also has like a newsletter you can be part of and different meetings. So I know Andrea Kawabata, who is our coffee specialist in the state, or coffee extension agent, has the Coffee Ed website that is amazing, has tons of resources. She's got all of our previous webinars that we just did. And we just did a series on coffee crop insurances available for the cherries and the trees, as well as other disaster and whole farm opportunities that are available, and how to get, you know, if you need like additional subsidies for those, if you're a new or disadvantaged farmer, a lot of those options, they exist out there, and that information is out there. And in fact, it brought up some questions by producers that participated in that, as well as industry people. Been talking to RMA about making some potential changes to this crop insurance from producers being involved and like seeking out this information. Hopefully it will help make it better for all like coffee producers in the state, you know, ideally, because it's these coffee producers that are asking this question and being like, well, this doesn't make any sense for what our needs are in this state, you know, and we understand you're basing it off of X, Y, and Z done elsewhere, but this is what we need. This is why we need it. And they've been doing a very good job of stating that. And that's kind of the ball's in RMA's court at this point, if I recall correctly. So it's gotten a small consortium, or a good sized consortium of them together to really say, hey, and like they're kind of pushing to get these changes. So seeing out these resources and finding these things and seeing, hey, this works or this doesn't work, and then being able to go back. I mean, some of these meetings that are available give you some real good opportunities to talk to some of these people that are really high up in these different groups. And I don't understand this. Why is it this way? It makes no sense for here. Or, you know what? This is great. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, exactly. You know, sometimes those folks that are putting on the programs on the higher end don't really have the opportunity to hear from the producer on the ground.
Yes,
and what's going on, you know, and they do want to hear, and they do want to know what's working and what's not working. So you know, that's a great way, even if you don't want to say anything in the meeting, but sit there and listen. That's a great way to know. And you can always reach out to those folks that are in there individually later on. But
and that's the nice thing about going to different things like the Leg Pauhana, which takes place regularly, or I know like HCA and some of the different coffee groups. And I know Andrea's done, like I said, we did this series of webinars, and we have another series coming up soon where these people that are involved with like Risk Management Agency, USDA, and FSA, and like all of that different groups, I was like, they can kind of hear questions and realize, hey, so really good opportunities.
Yeah. So, those are some resources that are out there. Definitely not an extensive list of resources that are available or folks that we can direct you to. So like we said, you can reach out to the extension offices or to us here at the Soul Project. And we're more than happy, to kind of direct you to the person that maybe can help you. We hope that, this helps listeners gain some knowledge about where they can go and locate those resources and help deal with some of the issues we talked about today, or, just gain more information about that. And visit, if you haven't, visit our Seeds of Wellbeing website and our YouTube channel, which we'll list in the show notes below.
Yes. And for additional information about this topic, see the links provided in the show notes. Also, just a quick reminder, if you haven't already, please complete the SO Needs Assessment Survey. Thanks for listening to the SO Podcast.
Before we go, show some love for your favorite podcast by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you're listening to this podcast. And then stay tuned for next month. Mahalo for listening. Ahui ho.